Hello and welcome to the STUK on Self-Love podcast. STUK Designs is a successful nonprofit for girls and a clothing brand run by young women from around the world. At STUK Designs, we believe in self-love first because self-love is the dawn that marks the beginning of all the different kinds of loves and because it undoubtedly sustains success. This podcast shines light on strong and talented women who excel and persevere in life while bathing in abundant self-love. So if you're ready to keep it real, level up in all your inner work, creative business, and community impact, then you've come to the right place because we provide you with content that helps your soul glow and your mind grow. Thank you for pressing play. Let's dive in.
Hey, STUK community, STUK founder Brette Sims here. And I just wanted to come on here today and talk to you guys about a touchy topic, but a very necessary topic to discuss. So I wanted to talk about healing emotional abuse through art. So yesterday I watched Phoenix Rising, and Phoenix Rising is a new documentary on HBO Max with Evan Rachel Wood. And I don't know if you guys know who Evan Rachel Wood is, but I grew up watching Once and Again. So I've watched her on TV since we were both like 12 or so. And then obviously, it's probably not obvious to you guys, but I love Westworld, and she is the star of Westworld currently, her and Thandie Newton. And it is just all about women empowerment, like standing up for, your worth, your own path, your divine path. And she's just so intelligent and just like a pure artist. The way she views the world is through the lens of an artist, and the way she shares her message and the way she heals is also, as an artist would do. But I think that whether you're an artist or not, we can all take a note from this documentary, as a story of how to really heal from physical and emotional abuse and transmute your pain, transmuting your pain through art, through something that is inspiring, through something that can help and uplift others. So her courage, her bravery, her boldness really motivated and inspired this episode. And what inspired me and uplifted me most about, this documentary, in which she speaks about her relationship with Marilyn Manson, how she encountered a lot of physical and emotional abuse. But what really just gave me this surge of empowerment was that she took a stand. She took a stand not just out of malice, not out of vindictiveness, not out of hatred or even non-forgiveness, or even to make an example out of a person, but she really did it to help other women heal and try to transmute their own trauma. And she also said, like, this is a quote from the film, but she was like, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is hold someone accountable for their actions. And, I think that is so valid. And it's something that I believe in so deeply, is just accountability. And, because that's really part of responsibility, which is the ability to respond to your own life. And that's in essence what I think self-love is. So I really think that there is self-love and art all through this documentary, and it is a pure example of how art saves lives and self-love heals. So in reflection to me and my own life, which I don't really talk about a lot because I've always felt in a way silenced about speaking out. I've felt silenced about speaking out about the abuse I encountered in my family dynamic, as well as the abuse I then, kind of like in reflection received from relationships that I had been in. And I think that what's really powerful about the Phoenix Rising documentary is she really shows the correlation between like how women grow up and what they're witnessing, you know, with their family dynamics growing up, and especially with their relationships with their mothers, and how that can manifest into just toxic relationships, and just a misaligned way of loving, you know, and loving yourself and loving other people. So just the just Evan Rachel Wood, in the way that she so powerfully, you know, shares her truth in a way that I've never really seen another woman do. It really gave me the courage I need to share my own truth and to speak my own mind fully in a way that I never have been able to before. Because I also wanted to be ready to speak from a place of forgiveness, and I wanted time to have passed from these old circumstances that I encountered myself, similar to what Evan Rachel Wood did in the documentary. So I really encourage you guys to watch that. I think that I know it's on HBO Max. You might be able to find it on YouTube or Amazon Prime as well. But anyway, let me dive into my own story a little bit, because, yeah, I found a lot of parallels. So growing up, in the documentary, there was a lot of talk about, you know, just like family dynamic, divorce, etc. I encountered kind of those same issues. And I remember when I was really young, long before, you know, any kind of divorce issues or anything like that, though, I was always like, my true self was always in a way suppressed. And I remember my mom telling me that, you know, maybe around when I was like 6 to 8 or so, I was always talking. I was talking her ear off like the true innate Gemini that I am. But then she said that she almost said it was like an annoyance. And so, and when people feel annoyed, I can pick up on energy very easily. I can read people's energy very easily. I'm an air sign. So it's very, energy is very potent to me, and I move and adjust based on, you know, the energy people are giving off. So she basically made me feel bad about, you know, talking as much that I did. And I mean, I guess she jokes about it now, but it's not really something to joke about, because it really silenced me. And because you know, at 6 you don't have boundaries in place necessarily. You don't even know what that is, and you just want to make your parents happy. You want to make people around you happy. And I was like, all right, so I guess I'm just supposed to be silent if that's going to make other people happy. So I learned that at a really young age. And you know, and in truth, it's, I don't know if you guys follow astrology much, but it's something that I very much follow. And I know that, you know, as the sign of Gemini, like that's not very normal. Geminis are bold, brave, and I am bold and brave and bright and talkative, and I love life. I love myself. I love to express to people. I love to share it. And so because that was suppressed within me starting at such a young age and in a family dynamic, it spread to so many other areas of my life and so many other relationships where I just let people suppress my truth, suppress my love, suppress what I want to share, because, you know, it's because it would be easier on them, because it would make it more comfortable on them, when, you know, the real role of an artist is to really disturb the comforted and comfort the disturbed. And we're meant to bring people out of their comfort zones, out of their just like these box mindsets that they won't escape from. We're meant to free minds. And that's why I think, you know, artists are controversial. That's also why I think that artists aren't really, especially women artists, aren't really respected in places like America, because America is all about suppression, whereas other cultures, you know, and other countries, for example, Japan is a great example where, you know, visual artists are deeply honored and deeply valued. And deeply respected as much as any other, like, quote unquote celebrity, because they have the ability and the power to shift society and to shift mindsets. But in America, people are so afraid of new mindsets, of new ways of thinking, of new ways of being, and new ways of behaving and acting. And it really takes courage to live an unconventional life, because in America, everyone judges you for it, no matter what, and you have to rise above that. So yeah, it's just like it's been quite a journey for me to move beyond that and to really see, these patterns within myself, forgive myself for them, forgive other people for them, and move beyond it. So growing up, I was really guilted. I was shamed. I was teased. I was bullied and given the role of problem child because I was just different as an artist. And then, the worst part about it is once I started, silencing myself, then I was even judged about that, judged about being too silent, like, what's wrong with her? Why is she so shy? But it's so interesting because I started, like, I catered to the other people because I never learned or was taught boundaries. My parents never taught me anything about boundaries, love, relationships. I never learned anything. Very similar to a lot of what Evan Rachel Woods talks about in her documentary, And so there was a lot of mental manipulation in later years from both parents who are definitely perfectionists, as a lawyer and a superintendent. They, expected me to be perfect and have a type A personality and to fit in society perfectly. I grew up with, on one side of the family, with, like, cotillion debutante balls, Jack and Jill, socially driven groups. And even starting at, like, I was asked to be a legacy at the cotillion, which is, if you don't know, like, it's like a light-skinned Black community thing. I think in LA, in California, it's a really big thing. In the Bay Area, it's a really big thing. But my grandma's like a Lynx, and so I was a legacy and meant to do that. But I said no, I didn't want to do that. I don't believe in colorism. I don't believe in classism. And I don't believe in separatism. I don't believe in exclusion. So, and I knew who I was at a very young age, but I was never able to be that because society was so oppressive, So, and I was forced to, like, state my plans, state my goals. I had to, like, I was asked when I would finally make it big. I was asked, like, to stay in horribly abusive corporate jobs, because I was just always told that I had to. I was told that I couldn't, ever quit a job until I had another corporate job lined up because everyone always told me that, art would never make a living. I could never be an artist. I was never told that I could do any of the things that I am currently doing. So it was a huge undertaking to reshape my mental programming to even be able to begin a life of freedom. Like, because I didn't really have that. And the first time that I went away to college, that's also a story in itself, because, like, I had to hide the fact that I just wanted to apply to one college because I was so sure. Because everyone told me that I couldn't get into the college that I wanted to get into. Everyone told me that I couldn't, like, that my dreams are not worthy, that I couldn't be who I wanted to fully be. And I really had to come into the awareness that that is just not true, and that these were all just lies, and that a lot of times what people are saying, to you or about you, it's really their own internal turmoil. It's their own reflections and projections on reality. So when people put fear on your plans or what is possible, for you, that just means that that's not possible for them. That's not possible in their world and their perception. But you can never speak for what is possible for another person, and it's very damaging to do so, especially before that person has had the ability to really become their own person. So sadly, in kind of like after university years or whatever, as this really harsh kind of mindset of like my family just hardened further. Even my brother adopted, that this harsh view of me. And it's just it's so significant of what so many artists go through. And even worth working, through STUK and building it up year after year, and different women coming on, I realized that so many were having the same struggle. Like, how do I get out of having to have like a side job and a purpose and a passion, and not like burning myself out and not having to do these corporate jobs that like my family is telling me to do, and living this conventional life that I don't even want to live. So it's really bold of me, I think, to be able to finally speak about this, because it literally took years out of my life. And it was like it caused a lot of health issues as well, because when you are suppressing like who and what you really are and who and what you really want to do, like it creates suppression in the body as well. So how did this kind of like very suppressive and oppressive like upbringing kind of uh, f- just really shape what my relationships became? I would say in not very positive ways. Like these relationships were years and years ago, so I've since moved on from them and very much have activated full forgiveness and all of that. But I've still just been called again and again. I've received a calling to speak about it, because I want other women to be able to, rise beyond the emotional abuse that they've countered themselves. So after I basically quit all corporate jobs, which I basically had received racism, sexism, bullying, just like being overworked, no mental health consideration. I finally quit. I finally walked away, and I even had to hide that from my family, because otherwise they would have judged me, slandered me, which they did. They still did anyway. So, and even I think that like we have to realize that in rising, no matter what your purpose is, and rising in this self-love journey and rising in this journey of becoming the fullest and best, highest version of yourself, sometimes, yeah, family can be one of the trickiest spots to navigate or get over, because they know all of the right buttons to push in you. They know all the right triggers to, affect you and create reactions out of you and emotions out of you. And that's really what I faced. Like my buttons were always being pushed because I was emotional. And I didn't have control over my emotions at younger ages. So right now I actually have a tattoo that says non-reaction, like non-reaction to negativity, because there was negativity all around me growing up, and I just had to really center, within myself and become strong enough to be light within myself so that none of that would affect me. So in romantic relationships, subconsciously, basically, I let the same kind of abuse go on. And it wasn't because I wanted to, it wasn't because that it was some fun thing for me, but it was all that I knew, growing up, while it's just growing up, I didn't really have, there wasn't so much, maybe there was laughter and we had a lot of play, I guess, but there wasn't really like I love yous said that much. My dad does say it pretty much every time we speak, but there wasn't, I really didn't feel that. I didn't feel the warmth. I didn't feel, it was very cold. I just had to behave a certain way. I was either with my brother or alone a lot. Like I drew, art really did save my life because I felt like I could tell nobody how I really felt. I never was able to discuss my relationships with anyone. I couldn't freely be myself. And in turn, it just made me allow my romantic partners to treat me with the same level of disrespect, because I just thought that that's how people behaved. I thought that that's how everyone acted. I thought that everybody was just mean because I only really received cruelty and like mean behavior and bullying from, even my own family. So I just figured that having to adapt to that and just to rise to the occasion of abuse was how people just behaved. And so after healing from really the trauma of my first college, relationship, it propelled me into spiritual consciousness as well as self-love and artistry, because it propelled me into just a crash course in healing. And that was the first time that I was really like, okay, something is wrong. Something is wrong with how I think that people love, with how I think that people should love, with how I've been taught what love is wrong. Like it just, I didn't feel good. I felt like, just so out of alignment. And I wanted to love myself fully. I wanted to always be the highest version of myself. And I wanted to really understand what love is. So I really just went within. And for a while, I've had really great relationships. I for a couple of years, I had a really good span of positive relationships. And I think that was just because I was being present. I was awake and aware and conscious and working on myself and journaling every day and really working through any present issues that arose. But I didn't know that I really had not healed the core root of the trauma. And I think people can have all different core roots of trauma. But for me, it was my parents and my family dynamic, because, it was a very volatile divorce that went on. There was a lot of screaming in the house, a lot of hatred. And I can still hear it. I can still hear words that were used. And, you try to block it out as a child, but it's still like, it's like ingrains itself within you, within your patterns and within your relationships, And I think that what so many of us don't realize is like when we don't take the time to heal from relationships and we just like sweep it under the rug or keep going, that creates even more damage, not only within ourselves, but within our family lines. Like, because my parents didn't ever really take the time to fully heal from their own relationships and really even discuss healing or anything with me and my brother. It manifested within our own relationships. And so it's like, not only did I have to heal my own trauma, but I had to heal theirs. So it was just such a deep process. And so I had to pick up all sorts of, new tools and new ways to really be able to heal and really be able to like navigate my life, because I had to reparent myself in a way. And I had to like become both the mother and the father that I really didn't have, who would actively listen to me or actively, understand who and what I was. So I think moving away and going to college and everything really gave me the first taste of independence that I needed to really be my own person. And for a while it was, it was really great and I had really positive relationships, but the core root of trauma always will catch up with you. It's like this karmic bond of with people and connections, because it's like you're running on a program of emotional abuse, basically, and until you break that, it's going to keep repeating. So in one particular relationship, I remember after, like, when kind of like my karmic pattern started to rear their ugly heads again, because I didn't realize that, that trauma was so deep within me. I had like a friend that I was friends with for so long, for like throughout college and years after that. And it was like a 12-year friendship, somebody that knew me and knew my family dynamic and knew the kind of like ways that it was emotionally abusive. It was just like in ways that I had to, I had to actually like be the person. I ended up being the person to actually tell my own mom that my dad was cheating on her. So it was very volatile, and I think that it's really important to note, like, when you actually can break a karmic pattern and you spend time, with yourself and immersed in self-love, you're able to kind of create a clean slate for yourself. But if you just kind of keep going in relationships and are not taking enough time to heal after they end, I think that, that's kind of what happened with me, and that's why karmic patterns started like rearing their ugly heads again. Anyway, I was basically like on the rebound and just like in this space where like, I'm so scared to be alone. So I ended up reconnecting, or on a deeper level, I would say, connecting with a friend who had actually been close with for like 12 years at that point. And it had pretty much been like just platonic friendship up until that point. There was always like flirtation, this and that, but I never thought anything more of it. And as somebody who is like a Gemini, I'm very in an air sign, I'm very much an intellectual. I'm very much like, I don't know, I'm just in my head a lot. And we just didn't really vibe on that level, and we just never really did. And I knew that, deep down, but I just was clinging to this concept of and this like security of quote unquote not being alone. And really, it's just like there wasn't even any security in that. It was a false idea that I had. And it was just because I felt like I was always so kind of just left to myself and left to my own devices, like within my family dynamic growing up. I always felt like people were going to kind of leave me or whatever. So I, would cling to things and cling to new relationships and just keep running on to the next. So anyway, this friend really did kind of take advantage of where I was in that space in my life. And as a friend for like 12 years, just knowing what I had been through, knowing my family dynamics, knowing what I had, in college, kind of the toxic relationship that I experienced, and the ways in which the guy was kind of like manipulated me. He kind of used those things against me in the end. And at first I thought it was like great, like he came to me and really like proclaimed his love, and he was like, I love you so much, and it was all so intense. And now I realized, like, in the Evan Rachel Wood documentary, she calls it love bombing, which it really was, that, which is a form of manipulation that people in relationship can use just to pull you in, to get your ego attached to this this dream and this promise of love. And so I was sold a very beautiful dream of like, we're soulmates, and then this is our life together, and it's going to be amazing. Eventually we're going to get married, and I'm the one, and all of this stuff. And it was a lot, but my egoic mind was basically telling me that it's better than being alone. So I stayed in it, and I went along with it. And the longer you go along with these kind of like love proclamations and this love bombing, it's like you get more and more attached and connected to it, even though it was like it was just words. And so to friends and to outside people, it appeared like I was some kind of like obsessive head over heels girl, when I had known this person for years and had never even considered or wanted that before. So that was strange. It was weird to like hear that people really thought that that this is the type of person that I was. But I was raised to be silent, so I just kept it going. And it just got more and more heightened and more elevated, and eventually manifested into a pregnancy. And I really want to talk about this also, because I think that so often, like, society honors just like pregnant women in general, but once you talk about either abortion or miscarriage, then you are shamed and shunned and silenced. So that is a part of this story as well. And it was really kind of my worst nightmare. I was stuck in this pregnancy that I didn't want, in a relationship that I never really wanted. And I was like, why is this happening? And I didn't understand why it was happening, because I hadn't taken the space and alone time that I really needed to process what was internally going on, inside of me. So while I just ended up, pregnant, deciding what to do, it was so stressful. Like, upon telling him that this was actually a reality, he freaked out, blamed me, basically said I was trapping him, put all of this on me. It was just, I couldn't even consider ever keeping it, because it was just so volatile. And even before that point, it's just like it had gotten so emotionally abusive, because it's like love bombing is how these kind of manipulative relationships start. But then there's seeds planted in your mind of doubt, and of how less than you are than them, and just how it got so dark. And so I was basically forced to take time to myself and process. And so for a few weeks I was basically like just on my own and pregnant. And in that period of time, I was ignored and neglected, and hung out basically like with my friends, a lot of my best friends behind my back. Um, talked about me behind my back, told false realities. And it was basically like, he just became so disconnected, a totally different person than I had ever known in the form of friendship. So eventually, it got to a point where basically stopped playing the role, and he owned up to not actually loving me. And it just broke my faith and my trust in a lot of things and a lot of people. And I guess most importantly, love. So it was really rough. We decided to like not go through with the pregnancy or anything, and just move on. And after that, like, yeah, he basically just had this like concept of, going back to friendship, but that's not possible. That's not like a real thing, because that's always what it should have been prior to the manipulation. So yeah, post breakup, post everything, basically, post pregnancy, I just had to heal in silence, basically, because I came from, as I've said before, very straight-laced family, very much so cares about social standing and appearance. So I could never tell anyone what really happened. And I had to heal from, one of like, it just was so incredibly painful, in silence. And, I told, my family, friends, which I'm so grateful for them because, when I did move to LA, I really did kind of like a family found me and I found them, I guess. And we just are very connected. And so they were definitely supportive of me in that. But it was still painful because nobody really fully understood it because I wasn't really fully ready to talk about all that had happened. Um, and it was such an intense situation and healing process. And from, after kind of like healing from the pregnancy aspect of it, it just like snowballed into eventually this immune system crash within my body, within my system. It was like this strange, unexplainable immune system crash and skin disease issue that I had. And this was like in 2016 or something, but it was a huge thing for me to like move through. And it also, in Evan Rachel Wood documentary, she really, in the Evan Rachel Wood documentary, she talks about, she has this like survivors circle about other victims, quote unquote victims. I really don't like to use the word victim because I think once you've healed, you're not necessarily that anymore. But one woman was talking about how it manifested into illness for her too, the emotional abuse, the physical abuse. And that's really what happened to me. And so basically, I almost died. I was on bed rest for months. And I can't even really, that's a chapter that I don't really even know how to quite explain yet, but I was so sick. And it's just like we as a society really don't acknowledge and own up to the fact that everything, like your mind and your body are connected with what you're going through is definitely connected to your health. Like you're mentally going through is always going to affect your health in some way. And my mind was just so polluted with like thoughts of like, I'm not good enough and I can't be this, because that's all that he told me, and that I'm not good enough to be loved and I'm not good enough to, have certain things. And I think that I'm too important. And, it was just like all of these things that were in my head. But to be fair, it was only, I think that everything is always a reflection of ourselves, but not consciously. And it was reflecting what I had grew up going through. And so the same kind of like abusive words that he'd used against me, like my own father and my family had used against me. So it was really just a reflection, and a repetition of that same kind of abuse. And so it's like, yeah, I guess so. I did kind of, I brought it on to myself, but in a very deep seated subconscious way that I wasn't fully ready to address, because addressing it meant I had to really dive deep into, the ways in which family members had been very abusive. So after recovery, I basically tried to keep running even more, guys. But I think that that's like what we do sometimes, and what our egos do sometimes as, coping mechanisms. And like, because I had taken time, when I was sick and I was resting and I was just all by myself, I was like, oh, well, that's good. That's enough. Couple, like 5 months, I'm good. That's enough time to, heal me, and I can be on my way to the next relationship. That again, and that's just like entering, another relationship with the same trauma on your back, and will just recreate the same circumstance again and again and again until you face where that's actually coming from within yourself, within your lineage, within your ancestry, within your family dynamic. So yeah, I basically, kept on running and entered into another kind of, manipulative, pretty toxic relationship in which I was kind of a secret yet again. And it was just not positive. And I was blamed for, things that just were not in my character to do. But at the tail end of the relationship, I was just really like, I had it finally. And I really, and I knew that it was, obviously going to end. So I had started the healing process, and I'd started kind of understanding like, oh, okay, I see where these parallels are. I see what's happening here. I can see this pattern, and I know it needs to end. And so, I hear the girls are calling this the villain year. And for me, this is not my villain year. I already did that. And that was pretty much how I concluded like the strain of, toxic relationships that presented themselves, because I was just like, I'm not doing this. And if you're really going to make me into this character that you're portraying me to be, then okay, I'll be that. I can be that. So anyway, it just ended and, forced me to really not only know that self-love is so, so, so deeply important, but to actively practice it, on the daily and within my relationship dynamics, because it's like I practiced it in every area of my life. But it would always get tricky as relationships grew and evolved, because I wasn't raised to ever have boundaries, and then B, I had to realize, the hurt that really did present itself deeply within my system, and I had to remove that from my mind, from my body, from my soul, from my spirit, to actually have full self-love alignment in every area. And upon truly owning and fully walking in my own personal authority, which I really kind of took up the reins to really do a few years ago, just within this last corner of my life, which is probably the most prominent one and main one and the most important one. Everything started to shift and change, and I started remembering things and feeling like I was coming home back to myself, like the self that I was in the beginning, before anyone had ever said anything about lack to me, before anyone had said anything about scarcity to me, or doubted me, or hated on me, or anything like that. It's just like the purity of who I am was able to come back to me. And I realized and recognized that I had like so many other artistic talents and outlets that I'd been suppressing because I was taught to do so. But like I realized that like I started remembering, like even before I got into painting and drawing and visual art, I started singing, and I was in choir, and I was in gospel choir, and I loved choir. And I also played the piano, and I've taken countless dance classes, and I absolutely love to write. And then this right here, which you guys are witnessing in real time, is, me using the art of voice to really share my healing journey and what I've been through, and how it is very possible for each of you to do the same. So the more deeply I heal the trauma of my emotional abuse at the root, then yeah, I started to like flourish. More joy, more light entered, and also just more people that resonated with me were able to enter, and just also any anger and hatred and frustration that I had in the past was able to kind of dissolve and diminish because with activating that self-love and really fully walking in that in the form of relationships, I realized that like all of these people, it's just, they were only responding to what I was presenting. And so I had to learn to really walk more strongly in who I am and really have boundaries that can't be tested and can't be crossed because yeah, to have boundaries respected is such a deep level of disrespect, and so, we're all just humans and we're all figuring it out one day at a time. But I think that, art as well as meditation, hypnosis, therapy, group sessions, or finding a spiritual teacher or spiritual coach, are ways that really can help navigate you through healing. I have taken a lot of Catherine Zinkina's courses. Her brand is called Manifestation Babe. It's also a #1 podcast. So yeah, check that out. But like her programs, her courses really helped me because she concludes EFT tapping, which helps with resistance and breaking mental patterns, reshaping habits. And then she includes like hypnosis and forgiveness hypnosis. And so really I just went hard on my inner work and I was determined to end this cycle and this pattern that presented itself. And, because like the manipulative and such cruel behavior that I had received from people was really, had really gotten to a point where it's like eating away at my insides and causing me to be unhealthy. And I needed to like exit all of that from my body energetically. And yeah, meditation is a great tool and way to do that, as well as, like I said, finding kind of like community, which also, STUK Designs is. And we want this podcast to be a resource and a tool for your elevation, for your motivation and inspiration, and your journey in self-love so that you can come home to yourself and walk in your full, authentic truth as well. Because like we really do want you to know that no matter what anybody has said to you ever, what any kind of trauma that you have encountered in your relationships, like you are so powerful. It's like you're not only powerful, but in fact, you are the power. You have the power to create your life. And especially when you tap into art and creativity, like this truth, this reality becomes so much more potent because you're like, building and creating things with your hand and like, wow, I can create this. And as I'm creating this, I'm really reshaping and reconstructing, my life. And it's like, I want you guys to also know that like you have the power to reshape and reconstruct your life, who you are, who you've been at any second in your life. You do not have to be the same person as you were even 5 minutes ago, even 5 seconds ago. You have the right and the ability to change, and we should change. We should evolve. We should grow into the highest and best versions of ourselves. Because, as a person, as a healer, as an artist on this journey, like, and just witnessing all of the cruelty, the lies, the slander people have put on my name, my reputation, who I am, what I want to be, my mental health, all of that, my finances, everything, it's just like you finally get to the point when you're like, oh, yes, all that happened. And this behavior was, in fact, basically inhumane. But wow, I came out of that and wow, I walked through that. I faced that. I faced my pain. I looked it in the face and I walked through it because the only way out is through. And when you can really like navigate yourself through that dark tunnel of pain and trauma and get to the light at the end of the tunnel, like beautiful things begin to manifest. You see so much light and love start shining in. And it's like you can be in joy even when external circumstances are not ideal, because you are no longer dependent on any person, place, or thing outside of yourself determining your worth, your joy, or your value. I really had to come to terms with the fact that like my value is internal. It comes from my light that is within. And that was a very tough place for me to be able to finally get to, because I was never told that. I was never taught that. And, you know, in a really pivotal moment of emotional abuse for me with like in my family dynamics, I remember like one Christmas, my brother and my dad like screaming at me and telling me basically that I can't make any money being an artist. I'm never going to be anything, become anything. And that if I have no money, then I'm pretty much like, I have no real value to them, not worth anything. And that made me, I mean, it spin-tailed me into a deep, you know, depression and anxiety for a while. But then I also realized like, wait a minute, no, my value actually comes from the light that is within me, that is within each and every one of us. And I actually recognize and know that I have a light no matter what anybody says. And when you can overcome, you know, family abuse, then I really think you can pretty much overcome anything, because that's the toughest kind of abuse, because you're so connected. You think, you know, it's all love. And sometimes you realize like, oh, okay, well, these people may not have faced their own karmic, you know, patterns and abuse issues that may have happened with their own parents. And so it's like at the end of the day, you know, despite all the cruelty we each may have encountered, we also have to really activate forgiveness, because it's forgiveness is not just about them or anything. It's really just about us, and it's about freeing ourselves. And when we forgive other people, it's like we have the freedom to move. And I don't mean, you know, forgiveness with re-entry, because I don't believe in that. Like any super like, you know, manipulative and toxic relationships that I've had, like I don't really have a desire to go back to them. Like, why would I? Because I've healed my, you know, karmic patterns. But I just really wanted to hop on here to tell you guys that it is possible. You're beautiful. You are limitless. You are so loved. And I'm so thankful that you are here right now, and that you guys are taking the time to listen to this podcast, invest in yourselves, and invest in the idea of love and of revolutionary love and healing. So we've also included some meditations on our website, stukdesigns.org, if you want to check that out. I basically included meditations that helped me along my healing process, helped me navigate through my own trauma. So they're really very uniquely, individually curated. Like I know they work because they work for me. So I hope you check that out. Also have a Fempreneur Friday community, a sister community to STUK Designs. So if you need help with, you know, if you're navigating through trauma, but you're also trying to get your work done and be an entrepreneur, you know, that's a resource for you too. But yeah, STUK Design is just full of resources to help you. We're here to give, we're here to support community, and we're here to come together in a humanitarian effort, because a lot of human beings have really been shut off to their hearts, to what's right, to like, or I shouldn't say what's right, because, you know, I guess that's tricky, you know, good, bad, what's really right and wrong, what's really good and what's really evil. But I do think that, you know, when love is not present, we can very viscerally feel that, and we know that. And so if we're to move in this world with more love, I think that that can create so much more change. And if we're able to come together, in the name of love as a form of revolution, then I think anything is possible, because I do think that love is the most powerful force that there is. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you for listening, STUK community. And until next time, have a beautiful day.
Hey beautiful people, we at STUK Designs have begun our crowdfunding campaign with iFund Women supported by Caress. We are raising money for expanding our programs, manufacturing art kits, setting up our studio that will be a space to empower women and girls through art and self-love, and a lot of other work that we have planned. We would love your help in our mission to provide girls in underserved communities art education and help them recognize and utilize the power of self-love. Visit our website www.stukdesigns.org for a link to our campaign. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. You can visit our website www.stukdesigns.org to shop our merch, make donations, join our blogging team, or be a part of our affiliate program. See you in our next episode. Love and light from us to you.